Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode.
In today's episode, I am joined by Freddie Harper-Davis, Rory Joe Daniels and Sam Moores as we compile our 2025 mock draft. Sam talks about the importance of this draft for the New York Giants.
For an organisation that is hoping to save their jobs, and obviously Brian Dable and Joe Shane, that's what they need.
And Rory reviews the off-season for his Bengals so far.
They're getting Higgins and Chase signed up was key, but obviously it's the lack of action at other positions that's the most worrying thing.
Hope you guys enjoy.
Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and today we're doing our 2025 mock draft. The draft, less than a week away now. We're going to give, as we have done the last few years, our picks from 1 to 32 in our mock draft. And today with me, I've got two returning guests. They're on last year's mock draft with me today, is Sam Moores and Rory Joe Daniels. Sam, Rory Joe, how are you?
Great, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back on the podcast again. You know, I think I have an idea, but I'm looking forward to it because this is always one of the best pods you do over the year, the week before the draft.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I always enjoy coming on. Yeah, it's fantastic to just get an idea. Now we're only a week out to get an idea of sort of use the buzz that's going around and sort of see how them fits work. So it's interesting to see how other people see it as well.
Fantastic. And we were going to have our other annual mock draft guest, Freddie Harper-Davis, but he is currently away. He may join us midway through, but for now, I'm going to have to text him, and he also text me his picks as we go through the draft, and I'll put it on our WhatsApp group chat, what each pick is made, and then that'll give Freddie an idea, and he'll text me then his picks, and I'll make them on the show for him. Before we do carry on, let's head to On This Day. Now, back in 1944, the Chicago Cardinals and Pittsburgh Steelers merged for the second year in a row for Steelers after they were called the Steagles a year before. But due to World War II, they were named Card Pit and went 0-10, with writers labelling them the Card Pits. In 2001, on this day, Virginia Tech quarterback Michael Vick was taken first overall by the Atlanta Falcons. And 2023, Lions wide receivers Jameson Williams and Stanley Berryhill were suspended for 6 games for violations of the league's gambling policy. And the likes of Tony Romo, Tavares Jackson, Mitch Morse, Shaq Thompson, and Khalil Herbert were all born. So let's get on to the mock draft. And of course, Freddie does have the first overall pick. I'll go through quickly the picks we have in total. So Freddie has picks number 1, number 5, number 9, number 15, 18, 21, as well as 25 and 29. My next up, second overall pick will be from Rory Joe Daniels. He also has the 6th overall pick number 10, pick number 14, pick number 17, pick number 22, pick number 26, and pick number 30. Sam has pick number 3, pick number 7, picks number 11, 13, 19, 23, 27, and 31. And myself, I have picks 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, and 32. So Freddie is first off the board with Tennessee Titans. Now, he has texted me his pick, and this will come as a shock to probably a lot of people in this room. He has picked Travis Hunter, which for me is a surprise. I do feel like, a quarterback is where they will go. And I was surprised he's gone for Travis Hunter. His reasoning is he's the best player on the board. But I'm surprised that he didn't go with a quarterback. But next up, somewhat shockingly, second overall pick is the Cleveland Browns, who may get one guy after all. Roy, who are the Browns picking with the second overall pick?
Yeah, I think the Browns would be really happy if this happened in the real thing. I'm going to go with Cam Ward, the quarterback. I would have picked Travis Hunter had it not been picked with the first pick. But yeah, I think the Browns looking for a reset at quarterback. I'm not sure they would have picked Sanders with the second overall pick. So yeah, I think they'd be ecstatic to have Cam Ward on board.
I agree. Now he is. I don't think we all know probably not the best quarterback class in the draft, but I think that I think he is a standalone candidate for me at quarterback. I think there's other quarterbacks who you could see being top 5, also could see falling down and sliding. So I think he's the one where there's no doubt about it. He is a QB that you want to pick. But we say this every year with certain quarterbacks, and a lot of them don't work out, especially the ones taken early on. So we just don't know. But it does seem like the one that is the most, the most safest pick to take a quarterback. Now, third is the New York Giants, and that is with Sam Moores. So, Sam, you're on the clock. Third overall, who are the Giants taking?
Well, I think I'm going to have to go for Abdul Carter. I can't pass up that great of a talent. So it's weird because the Giants don't really get better with him because you've got Brian Burns, you've got Kayvon Thibodeau. They actually probably could have done with Travis Hunter a lot more than anything because he could come in and be a dynamic straight away and make their team better, which for an organisation that is hoping to save their jobs, and obviously Brian Dable and Joe Shane, that's what they need. But having a scary pass rush of those three guys, it's like the old days of the Giants, and I think that is also exciting. If anyone wanted to send me an offer for Kayvon Thibodeau, they're very welcome to, because I think he's the one that's been rumoured, and if the Giants do go Carter, he's the one that's been sort of offered about, as you could say. But no, I think there are a clear top three. I'll be shocked if these three players aren't the top three gone, because, well, especially Hunter and Carter, they are by far the two best players in this draft class. I feel like any of basically, if they don't fall beyond the Giants, there's a steep drop off, and they have to take Carter because the value is just astronomical compared to the next player on the off the board.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think this is where the fourth pick, similar sort of method. I think he's the next available player, the best available player left on the board. And now I was fully envisaging taking Travis Hunter here. He was my plan, but I didn't think that. I thought Freddie would take Cam Ward. I thought that you get Abdul Carter or Shedeur Sanders number 2. I did think maybe that. I just didn't think I'd be getting him. So my plans have changed a little bit with my fourth overall pick. I'm going for a player on defensive side of the ball. And I think he's an ex-available guy. I've gone for Michigan's Mason Graham. I think the Patriots, they've gone out and got defensive help for Drake May. And they've been pretty active in the free agency market. I mean, they've already got some great. I actually did an article on it today for the franchise tag, and I want to get up the exact numbers because they spent a lot of money, and they've still got, even now with that, still about $60 million left in their cap space. But if I'm looking at their current spending, I mean, they bought defensive tackle Milton Williams, 4-year, $104 million deal. They bought like Harold Landry and Carlton Davis. And that's still, Stephon Diggs as well coming through the door. I mean, $863 million, $16.5 million for him. And I think that, you look at that and maybe you could argue perhaps they should go maybe on the offensive side of things. But I think that in terms of best available player on the board, I don't think there's any other offensive players that I can really got on my board here that I think personally is worthy taking fourth overall. I think that Mason Graham is touted around about the 5th or 6th. I think Jacksonville is being touted as where he will go. And I think, personally, they can really boost. And they can really, with Mike Vrabel there as well, a defensive mind, a defensive expert. We saw what he did with the Titans. I think he'll want to go defense as well. That's where he knows best. And I think, I think Mason Graham is where he'll go fourth overall. So now we're relying on Freddie with the 5th overall pick. Now he's on the clock. And I quickly see if he can respond this, because I know we are having to rely on the wonder of text, and I think he is currently out and about, so hopefully he'll see this. Now, whilst we're waiting for him, Freddie, to make the pick, I mean, you boys will be watching the draft, I'm sure. What are your plans? Because it is also an awkward time for Brits. It's a Thursday night. It's not exactly a Friday or Saturday night. You haven't got, that luxury where you got work off the next day, unless you do take annual leave off. So what's your plans where you want to watch the draft? Are you watching it just in your living room, or have you got any plans to watch it further afield?
I'm going to watch it with my friends, I think. I live with a couple NFL journalists, so I'm going to watch it with them. And it's kind of worked out well for the second and third days, because the game that I was meant to be covering, Leeds against Bristol City, has been moved to the Monday night. So it means I can have all 3 days of the draft now, which which is good. So I can concentrate on that and then go to do the football on the Monday, which is good. But yeah, I think I'm quite lucky to have friends to watch it with, and we all support different teams as well. So it's always funny watching people's reactions on draft night.
Yeah, I'll just be at home for it usually, and sat up on my own in the living room. But yeah, I'll be active in a couple of group chats with some friends that'll be watching it. So it's always good to have a bit of back and forth with everybody else that's watching it at the same time. But yeah, it's just this time of year is like sort of Christmas Day to me. I'm a draft guy, so yeah, it's no hardship getting up at that time. It's something I look forward to doing every year.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Now, I had planned originally. I had planned to. We actually got given a chance credentials to go to the NFL draft, but one reason or another it hasn't worked out timing wise, and I was going to then instead do some live reactions to each pick, but an opportunity to come about to work sort of at a sports awards event at the Emirates Stadium, so that's taking priority. I may get home in time. It never depends what time the event finishes. I may get time, but I may not. So you may or may not get content on the day itself, but either way, we'll be sure to bring you a draft review later on in the coming days after the draft ends. Now, Freddie has texted me his 5th overall pick, and this is a bit of a surprise. I'm surprised he went this way, but with the 5th overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Freddie has taken tight end Tyler Warren. So that is, I thought he might have gone elsewhere. I had other players higher on my list than him, but fair play, position of need.
I think, especially with Evan Ingram gone now as well, obviously going to the Broncos, it makes it like there's a big hole there, and just getting another weapon for Trevor Lawrence. I think I'd probably have gone offensive line or defensive line, just try and beef it up and make their defensive line really good. But no, it makes total sense. I think he is probably a good fit, and with Mason Graham gone, then yeah.
Fair play. Now, Rory, back with you. 6th overall is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. Rory, you're on the clock. Who are they taking?
Yeah, so I thought this player was going to be off the board at this point. And it's probably not where a lot of people are mocking to the Raiders. And I'm actually going to go with the left tackle, Will Campbell. So I know it came out today, or was it yesterday, maybe, that the Colton Miller, the left tackle for the Raiders, was expecting sort of an extension. He's going into his final year, and that was sort of met with sort of lukewarm vibes from the new general manager. It was sort of let's see how this year goes before we start talking left tackle contracts. And on the right hand side, they've got DJ Glaze, who was surprisingly good for a rookie on the right hand side. So although it doesn't look like an immediate need, it's a position that obviously is a priority position. It's one of the premier positions: tackles, edge rushers, quarterback, obviously. So I think they could just get themselves an insurance policy. Will Campbell is well regarded. So yeah, I think a lot of people going for Ashton Genty to the Raiders, and that does make sense. But I just think the positional value of tackle takes precedence over running back for me.
Fair play. I mean, I think what we've seen in recent years with teams who have taken tackles early that are the best available over defensive side. You think about, the Detroit Lions taking Penei Sewell, and they could have taken other players, offensive players, and look what the success that's brought them. And the Bengals, there's always an argument that if they'd taken Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase, you could argue with Boyd and Higgins still there, they may have still made the Super Bowl. I mean, you're a Bengals fan, you probably might think differently to that. But would you think maybe the Bengals would have won a Super Bowl if Penei Sewell was protecting Burrow rather than what has been there protecting him the last 4 years of his career?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I wouldn't necessarily say he would have been the difference maker, and obviously Chase is unbelievable. But I do think in that situation, it's easier. You couldn't get it wrong, really. And obviously, wide receiver is a premier position as well. So that was the thinking here, is that it's just tackle versus running back. Whereas if it was maybe a tackle versus a wide receiver, you probably it would have been more of a toss up. But yeah, I think a new regime in Las Vegas might just want to start picking some sort of players they can build around, building blocks like Campbell.
Fair play. Well, now we're heading on to number 7 with the New York Jets. Sam, you're on the clock. Who are the Jets taking?
Oh, see, this is a great situation for the Jets now because probably 2 of the top players on their board, I reckon, are available. I mean, there's no secret that the Jets need tackle help. And the best tackle, I think, because a lot of people think that Will Campbell will go playing guard. The probably best tackle in the class is Membu from Missouri. And that's what I would have been my slam dunk pick, but I was just betting that G&T would go to the Raiders at 6, and then now the Jets have got a great, they'll probably be answering so many calls, people trying to trade up in its scenarios up, but you've got 2 great players, you've got to take one of them. I feel like the Jets, if you put G&T in the Jets, I don't think they're going to win overnight, and I feel like for their franchise, just getting a cornerstone tackle, you can play him at right tackle in year 1 because they need a right tackle, the Jets do, and then maybe in a couple of years' time move him to left. But I think Membu just makes sense. So G&T's going to fall here, I think. But for where the Jets are at as an organisation, they don't have a quarterback, future really, because Justin Fields isn't going to be there for very long. We don't think. I think Membu is the pick for the Jets just because it's a great building block for new GM and new head coach.
Well, next up is the 8th overall pick, and this is where I come in with the Carolina Panthers. Now, there's only really one guy that I was really picturing here because I didn't think that this guy would be taken in the first 7. And I feel like what the Panthers need, I think he is absolutely perfect. Needs would be a real game changer to the defense. So with the 8th overall pick in the NFL for 2025 across the pod mock draft, I've gone for linebacker, edge rusher, Jalen Walker. Watching this guy's tape, and I'm not as much of a college watcher as maybe Rory and Freddie are, but from what I saw on the tape, I mean, he just looks so quick off the edge. I mean, the amount of times I saw him almost get to quarterback as well as get to quarterback in other clips. I mean, he was just so ridiculously fast off the line, and I think that have a guy like that, and probably is the best edge outside of Apple Carlton. I think if you get someone like that in, I think that would really help. I think it's been a position that's really been lacking for years, a good edge rusher. I mean, ever since Luke Kuechly retired, I don't think they've had many dominant players on defense. So I think getting him in there, I think, will be a great addition to this Panthers team. So we're back with number 9, and again, we are relying on Freddie to take this pick, and we'll have to rely on his texting to see whether he will respond. Now, whilst waiting for Freddie to make his pick, I mean, every year we have a draft crush, and I don't expect his name yet because maybe your draft crush hasn't been picked yet. But is there any sort of one this year that you saw have fallen in love with in the draft that you sort of are looking forward to maybe watching coming up the next few years in the pros?
For me, I think Jihad Campbell out of Alabama is one of the. I think he's a lot of people's favourite just because he's so active from the linebacker role, versatile, able to drop back and cover as well as he can rush. I think there's potential for him to develop into more of a pass rusher, and I think that speed and athleticism could transform the defense that lands him. But obviously, I know there's a couple of injury concerns around him, torn labrum. So whether or not that might affect his where he falls, but he was somebody that I really enjoyed watching.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm really looking forward to seeing where Atten G&T lands because historic college season, one for the ages, and we've not seen that for a very long time as a running back. And again, it looks like we're going to get him as going in the first round, maybe even really, really soon. And I feel like if he lands on the right team, he could, break records in the NFL, judging on what we saw in college.
Well, we have our first trade of the mock draft, and that is where I get involved. With my Dallas Cowboys 12th pick, I have given that to Freddie along with a future second and a future third in exchange for the next pick, which is going to be the New Orleans Saints with the 9th overall pick. So now with the 9th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys select running back Ashton Gianti. I didn't think he'd get this far. I did think he was going to Raiders at 6. And I think the fact that Sam, I know they had Brees, I thought maybe you could have gone for him at 7. And I didn't think the Panthers necessarily needed him. There was more areas of need. But I think the Cowboys absolutely need a running back. And for me, I think as soon as the Raiders were off the board and they hadn't taken Ashton Gianti, for me, I was very much thinking, right, this is where I'm going to pounce in and get it, because I think that if I'm looking at the depth chart for the Cowboys, I mean, offense-wise, it's been really poor, really. I think you look at, you've got CD Lamb there, but really, I think you could take a wide receiver with the Cowboys' first pick and you'd be fine with that. I mean, Devontae Williams and Miles Sanders are there, but I don't think they're guys that are going to really, I think, take the Cowboys back to the playoffs and even more. So I think someone like Ashton Gianti available. I think Jerry Jones would definitely, love to get someone like him who's that explosive. So that is where we're going with number 9 with the Cowboys. So number 10 is with Rory and with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I've been absolutely sniped there by Andy. I just thought, Genty is just going to fall into my lap there perfectly, because I think that's one of the more popular matches. And it just makes a lot of sense with Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. So I'm scrambling now with my board to sort of pick somebody. I'm going to go maybe a bit left field, and let's take tight end Colston Loveland with the 10th pick for the Bears there. So the thinking behind that one is obviously they've got Cole Kmet. I don't know if I'm right in saying he's going into his last season on a contract. It could be last 2. So, and then I think they can still use Loveland as well as Kmet. I think they've got Zacchaeus they've brought in the slot. So Loveland, he can play detached from the formation. He doesn't have to be. He's probably better as a slot tight end rather than an inline tight end. But he's a proficient blocker. He's a fantastic receiver, and he's a bit of a safe prospect really, in terms of like he can do everything. He's going to give another weapon to this offense. You've got DJ Moore and Roman Dunes there, and I think putting Loveland in there gives Caleb Williams a good selection of weapons. And I think, ideally I would have been looking at Jalen Walker, Genty, Membu, and even Tyler Warren, but sort of the way the board's fallen, I've had to scramble around a bit. And but I'm happy with Loveland. It probably could have been Jihad Campbell, but I think the injury concerns are going to keep me from using the top 10 pick on him. So I think, I'm happy to take a tight end there.
Right, so number 11 is back with you, Sam, and it is the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and this has worked out perfectly for the Niners. I feel like they got one of the I've got in my notes for the Niners, it's offensive line or defense, simple, but that's what they have to do. Just because they've had so many decimations over the last couple of years on their defense, and their offensive line again is not in a great spot at all now. And I'm going to take Jahdae Barron, defensive back from Texas. I say defensive back there because he can play in multiple positions, and I think I'm really looking forward to seeing how he can transform that 49ers defense, because I think many people that I trust have been saying he's one of the best. Could be one of the best players in this class, just in terms of right away come in and play, and can play many positions over that back end, and I feel like that's a real weakness for the Niners. I thought he would have been taken in the top 10, Jahdae Barron. I'm seeing that a lot more over the last couple weeks. So getting him at 11 there is perfect.
Fair play. Well, next up is Rebecca Freddie, who has the 12th overall pick via that trade we made earlier, and the Cowboys did trade up and give 2 future picks in order to get Ashton Gianti. So we're just waiting now for him. So with the 12th overall pick, the New Orleans Saints select cornerback Will Johnson out of Penn State. So now we're on to the 13th overall pick, which is going to be back with Sam. Now, we've gone a bit against the run of play because we do normally try and go in order, but I do try and give our fans, our guests on the show who are fans of a certain team, the chance to pick their own team's picks, which next up is the Dolphins, which of course is both mine and Sam's team. Now, Sam, as you are a guest, I'm giving you the honour of picking for us. So with the 13th overall pick, and I'm hoping you're going to say a certain name. There's one guy I really wanted to take with this pick. I think we can get him, so I'm hoping you're going where I'm thinking you're going.
Oh, I got bad news, I'm afraid, Andy. I'm trading down.
Trade down? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm trading with myself. I'm trading with the Bucks.
Okay.
So, going down, what was it, six spots? I think we'll do the Dolphins will move forward in the second round. So I'll do a pick swap in the second round. And then the Bucks will probably include a future second and a second a second this year and a third in 2 years' time. So so basically it's a pick swap in the second round, a future second, and a future third as well, for the Bucks to go up, and the Bucks are going to draft Mike Green. I feel like they're jumping over a couple of teams that need pass rush, and the Colts and the Falcons, and that's why I'm jumping up. And if you can just secure the future for that team because of the players you've got on that team, they are in sort of win now mode. The Bucks are kind of they've got Hassan Reddick coming on this year. He's not going to be there forever, and then if you can just secure that position, which is so valuable, I feel like it's a win-win here for the Bucks. You can go and add to their pass rush, and also Hassan Reddick's not going to be able to play every down either. So just adding the rotation, I feel like they need that, and I feel like just jumping over the Colts and the Falcons here. The Bucks come out to 13, draft Mike Green, and the Dolphins, who are in a bit of a rebuild. This year, obviously, we've got the news of Jalen Ramsey going, and they've been very, very quiet this offseason. Going back and picking up 2 future picks and going up in the second round as well, I feel like they'd take that deal.
Well, next up, to be fair, I think I'm hoping, you didn't go for the guy I wanted us to take, so I'm hoping by the time he gets to pick number 19 that this guy's still on the board. Unless, of course, I take him with one of my picks. But we are next up to, and that's going to be next up with Rory Joe Daniels, and that's going to be the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I think I was leaning towards Green. So, again, undone by a trade. I think I'm going to take my guy Campbell here. So Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, just mainly because of everything I said. Really, it makes a need for him. You can plug him in as a starting linebacker, and like I said, I think on pass rushing downs, he has the potential to be a decent edge rusher. He was recruited out of high school as an edge rusher, and just couldn't get on the field due to the quality at Alabama. So they started him at linebacker, and he never looked back. But I think he fits well with the Colts, and he's the kind of guy that can be a future leader for that defense if the injury concerns check out.
Well, next up is
I was just going to say, Andy, as well, I'm actually swapping picks in the third rather than the second. So
okay.
Picks up in the third. Dolphins pick up 14 spots in the third.
Fair play. Well, next up on the draft is going to be the 15th overall pick, and this is where the Atlanta Falcons come in. Of course, last year they took a bit of a risk, which I think even now has become a bit of a problem for them. I mean, Kirk Cousins, they already got so much money, and he doesn't succeed. They took Michael Penix early on in the draft, and that was a shock to a lot of people. I think to this day, I think I don't think they will get that in terms of Michael Penix. I think he might be a good quarterback, but I think, that was certainly one of the shocks of this year. And I think they'll be hoping, the Falcons fans this year, that they don't make the same mistake as maybe they did before. So right now, we're on the clock waiting for Freddie as he makes his pick. So we're sort of halfway through the draft at the moment. So I want to quickly run through those who are listening for the picks so far. So that means we've got Travis Hunter going first overall, Cam Ward second, Abdul Carter third, Mason Graham fourth, Tyler Warren fifth, number 6 is Will Campbell, 7th is Membu, 8 is Jalen Walker, 9th is via a trade with the Cowboys and the Saints, Ashton Genty, 10 is Colston Loveland, and number 11 is JD Barron, 12 is Will Johnson, number 13 is my green. Number 14 is James Campbell. And now Freddie has come in with the 15th overall pick. And we have a guy who is staying in the same state that he played in college with the 15th overall pick. The Atlanta Falcons are taking Georgia's Mikael Williams. He is someone that I looked at tape on. I must say as well, I wasn't that impressed with the tape. No, I'm probably not the biggest expert on it because I don't watch enough college football, but from what I watched an 8-minute highlight video. It took 2 minutes of highlights to watch him actually sack a guy. And even with that sack, I saw it was aided by a bounce off a separate offensive lineman. I think stopping the run, I think he was quite good at, but I think the sort of going at a quarterback, I didn't think he was particularly great. I didn't think. I think the fact that he took 2 minutes into an 8-minute highlight video where there's about 5 or 6 plays before that, and not one of them saw him get to the quarterback when it's meant to be showing the guy's best bits. I didn't see too much there. I was personally that excited about. But either way, he is a guy taken 15th overall by the Atlanta Falcons, which means it's back with me for the 16th overall pick for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, for the Cardinals, I had a few positions I had planned for them. I think O-line was my main priority, but I just didn't think. I think the main guys off the board were there. But there's one guy that I want to take now. The only thing I think is a guy I really like at the edge. But I don't know whether that's. I think is he the biggest? Is he the best guy on the board? It's a tough one where you like a guy, but are you going to be reaching by taking a guy at 16th overall? But I think this guy is where he is meant to go. So I'm going 16th overall. I'm going for Texas A&M edge rusher Sherma Stewart. Now, this is the guy that I absolutely love watching tape on. I mean, again, watching the highlights, there was a lot of plays where he was ridiculously quick off the line of scrimmage. He was so quick to get to a quarterback. There was one play I saw against Arkansas where he forced a fumble. There's only one caveat I find to all of this is the fact that maybe it wasn't the best protection from the offensive lines. I saw a lot of empty spaces, but yeah, I think what I saw, and the Cardinals team that I think need as much help as they can on defense. I know they've gone out and got Josh Sweat, and I think Josh Sweat is, for me personally, the best free agency addition. I think personally, but I think having him alongside Josh Sweat, I think will be quite a fearsome defensive line or just defense in general. So, yeah, Sherma Stewart with the 16th overall pick. Now heading over to the 17th overall pick, which is the Bengals, which is back with Roy Joe Daniels, of course, a Bengals fan. Who's going 17th overall to the Bengals?
Yeah, I think they could go a few different ways here. We've got needs along the offensive line. We definitely need guard. And then obviously defensive line, there's a couple of names on there. But I'm actually going to go for the guy that would be a top of my board at this point, which is Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. So I think he's a really good player. I know people have cooled on him. The combine performance perhaps has helped that because the athletic testing wasn't elite. But in the safety position, I don't feel like that's as big a need. I think he can get away with being slightly sort of average to above average. And the testing, when they sort of do the miles per hour on the drills, Starks was consistently one of the higher, hitting the highest mile per hour out of the safety group. So I don't think speed is a concern. Actual play speed isn't a concern. I think he's a massive need for the Bengals because since we let Jesse Bates go, we've struggled to sort the back end of the defense out. And I think somebody like Starks with his range and his versatility plugs straight in. He's very clean prospect, no issues on the injury front or character-wise. So yeah, he'd be very high on my board, and I would race this pick up personally if it was me. I'm not sure the Bengals will see the value as much as I do in safety, but I think he's an elite player, and he's definitely a top 10 guy in this draft, so he represents good value.
Now, Rory, of course, you are a Bengals fan. Quite a busy off-season for the Bengals. I mean, we all know what's happened with the contracts. Of course, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins signing long-term deals. But are you worried about maybe, we'll talk about it more, of course, when you come on for our season preview, but in terms of, do you think this sort of draft is going to be sort of one-way traffic when it comes to position-wise? Or how are you sort of feeling about the off-season so far for the Bengals?
It's a bit worrying. Obviously, getting Higgins and Chase signed up was key, but obviously it's the lack of action at other positions that's the most worrying thing. So obviously, the way that the deals were structured, perhaps we could have freed up more money to be spent in free agency. For whatever reason, they didn't do that. So there is holes. I think edge rusher they're going to have to address at some point. They're either going to have to keep Trey Hendrickson happy, but even then you're still going to have to address it a year down the line. Definitely guard. We need at least one starting guard out of this. And I think the big thing from this draft is, as the roster stands now, we're probably going to need at least 3 to 4 starters. And with 6 picks, that's not easy to do. And it's not something we've done very regularly over the past sort of 4 to 5 years, is to get that many starters out of a draft. So it could be one where we sort of see what's on the board and try and get value, and then go back, maybe dip into free agency. People like Brandon Scherf or Dalton Reisner are still on the market at guard, so there's a potential for that. But yeah, there's a lot of question marks, and it is a really important draft. That's the feeling we get. If we're going to be a playoff team again, they're going to have to draft well this year.
Yeah, I agree totally. It's it's all good having that offense being so good, and I think what we're going to see now is an amazing offensive group. I mean, Burrow had an MVP year last season. I mean, it was even how often do you get a quarterback with an 8-9 record or 9-8 record missing out in the playoffs, still being an MVP candidate? I got a feeling he got one vote. I could be wrong on that. I've got a feeling he got one vote in the MVP trading, MVP voting, I should say. But I think the defense worries me a lot, and I think the whole situation now on defense is really worrying for me. So I think for them it's going to be a really really interesting season. I think we'll see a lot of high scoring games with the Bengals this year, unless they absolutely smash it in the draft. Now the Seahawks are next up, and this is where Freddie Harper-Davis comes in with the 18th overall pick, and he has told me he is picking Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. Great addition. I mean, this is the guy as well that I like the look of a lot. When I looked at his tape with Gray Zabel, one thing I found with him was that there wasn't really a lot that he couldn't do. I thought, some linemen I found are really good at run blocking, but maybe not as good as the pass protection. But some are good at the run blocking, bad at the pass protection, but some are bad at the passing protection and good at the run blocking. But I found personally he was great on both. I mean, looking at his draft profile, 90.4 PFF grade. But I think the one thing that's been sort of earmarked as a negative is perhaps the FCS competition. So, yeah, but I think overall, I think it's a good pick. I think he was a worthy pick there at number 18. So number 19 is back with Sam, and of course this is where the result of our trade comes in. Dolphins, who traded back from pick number 13 with the Buccaneers to go to number 19. Sam, who are they taking?
I'm trading down again.
What?
I feel like the Dolphins have to. If there are plenty of players here who they could choose from, and again picking up another future second, it's the way that there are so many starters that are needed for this Dolphins team. If you can just pick up as many picks as possible over the next couple of years, you need to do, because that cap number is terrible. Like they need as many cheap picks or cheap starters as possible because of how badly managed that roster has been. So they're trading down 4 spots. The Packers are coming up because there's a player that I'm sure the Packers would love to draft still on the board, and Taylor McMillan. I'm shocked he's fallen to 19. He is the perfect receiver for what this Green Bay offense needs. So they've got guys who can win with their legs. They've got quite a few speedy guys, quite a few slot guys. If you just have a receiver, they need a big receiver you can just chuck it up to and grab, and that's what that's perfect for Green Bay. So yeah, Green Bay give up their third round pick. They also have a future second in there as well. A few pick swaps, which again favour the Dolphins in this year's draft. So you move up again in a couple more rounds to get some more starters. And yeah, the Packers go up and get Taylor McMillan. So the Dolphins go down to 23.
Okay, so now that leaves back with me. Now, my pick is the Denver Broncos. So with the Broncos, I think position-wise, I think obviously the main position I think was probably the running back position, but of course Ashton Genty is now gone. So I think for me, I'm looking elsewhere. I think I want to go for the next, I think, available wide receiver. I'm going with the 20th overall pick. I'm going for Matthew Golden. Now, there were some concerns about him because I did think that there were so many good signs of OBJ. I think there's a lot of, when I watched him, his tape, when I watched him, it just reminded me so much of OBJ. But I think on the one side, you could argue that the defensive maybe coverage wasn't great, but he's also the same guy making the routes, making the sort of having those sort of changing direction. So I think for me, Matthew Golden is, I think, will be an extra weapon for Bo Nix. And I think he'll be a worthy pick at number 20. So that means we're back with Freddie at pick number 21. And it's his team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the next pick is in. Freddie has picked the Steelers at 21. And he has picked, with that pick, quarterback out of Colorado, Shadir Sanders.
He's a fan.
I think he's been forced into the pick. I think he's still there. I think he probably feels like, may as well take a risk at 21 because you've still got, potentially Rodgers coming in. But I don't know where I stand with him. I get a lot of mixed messages from Shadir Sanders, whether I think he's good or not. But I think at 21 overall, you can't really go wrong. That's pretty risk-free, in my opinion. 22, we're back with the Chargers and Rory Joe. Rory, who are the Chargers taking 22nd overall?
Yeah, I'm going to go defensive line here, and I'm going to go Derek Harmon out of Oregon, the defensive tackle. So a lot of pass rush juice there, which will help on the defensive front. And he can play sort of anywhere along. He's played that 3-tech role, which I think is where he's best at. He can also cover at nose tackle, and he's done a bit of 5-tech as well. So I think that versatility fits what the Chargers do. And I just think he's going to be good at creating pressure. I think he needs to improve his tackling and his his run defense. But I think if you're just looking for some pass rush juice, then he's one of the top defensive tackles in the draft.
That's right. Now that means we are at 23, and this is again the Dolphins, who have once again traded down by the Packers at 23. Sam, are the Dolphins picking this time?
Yes, with the 23rd pick, the Dolphins pick Calvin Banks Jr. from Texas.
Yes.
So again, he'd probably play guard. He'd probably start in at left guard next to Patrick Poole. I feel like that's and again, everything I read, he is the perfect guard for this system for the Dolphins, and it's what they desperately need. Again, I probably would have taken him at 13, but with the way the ball was falling, there were some offensive linemen available. There were also some defensive linemen available, and those are the two positions the Dolphins probably are going to go for. And I mean, there still are defensive linemen available. But again, I feel like just reloading, just getting the picks you need. I've now got 3 second-round picks next year. I've now got 3 third-round picks this year. I feel like the Dolphins need to do that. I feel like they're more likely to trade down than they are to trade up this year. Because, again, they just need to get as many cheap starters in the next couple of years as possible with under Tua's contract, which, again, they're probably tied for at least the next 2 years. And I feel so, yeah, for me, it just makes sense. And you get the same player, you would have got 13 probably. So this is what I'd do if I was Chris Greer.
Fair enough. So next up is my pick, and this is where the Minnesota Vikings come into play. So I'm going with the 24th overall pick in a 2025 Across the Pod mock draft. I am going for South Carolina safety, and I'm probably going to really butcher this guy's name, Nick Imanawari. And then Freddie is also texting me with his next pick. So with the 25th overall pick in the draft, the Houston Texans take Tyler Booker. So that means we're now at pick number 26, which is back with Rory and the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, so I think for me, I am going to go with Trey Amos, the cornerback out of Ole Miss. So it just makes a lot of sense in terms of the needs. Obviously, they addressed the defensive line last year, and they've obviously got Jared Verse now, Brandon Fisk, Kobe Turner. So from that side of things, I think they're set there. And obviously they brought in Devontae Adams at wide receiver. So I was thinking Luther Burden could possibly come in there with Puka Nacua and offer like an option in the slot. But I think looking at the slated starting corners, I think Trey Amos is still a good pick there. Very long, very very versatile in that he can play in any system. He's good in man and zone. And he possibly could go higher than this. Somebody could fall in love with him. But I think there's a lot of injury concerns with some of the top prospects that are cornerbacks. So Amos being a fairly clean prospect could help his draft stock.
The next up is 27. This is back with Sam and the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, this one's tough. This one is tough. I probably would have gone with Amos for the Ravens, to be honest with you. We got an interesting one because they got sort of all the back end defensive line with the Chiefs. So I feel like that's probably what they need to go for. It's one of the things where it's not a big need, but I think edge is probably their biggest need as well, maybe cornerback and interior offensive line. But again, Booker's just gone as well. So I feel like I'm going to go for a minor need, one of the best players available and again, he's very Ravens defensive tackle as well. I'm going to go for Kenneth Grant from Michigan. I feel like that's a good fit there. Just for them, their needs don't really shake up. So it's one of the best players available. And between him and Walter Nolan, it's very close. But I feel like the Ravens are more likely to draft Kenneth Grant.
Fair play. So next up is 28, the Detroit Lions. Now, I think what I'm going to go for is, I don't think it's their, I think you could argue it is one of their biggest needs, but also it isn't one of their biggest needs. I feel like they definitely could go other areas, but I'm going to go for Ohio State tackle Josh Simmons, a guy I love watching. I think what I saw, he was really not afraid to make contact and make the big hits when needed. And I was really impressed with his tape at Ohio State. Now, 29 is going to be back with Freddie and the Washington Commanders. So let's see what Freddie is going to pick. Well, next up, it's a 29th overall pick. And this pick goes to the Washington Commanders. But we've got a trade. So in the end, the Saints are trading up to the Commanders pick at 29. They are giving up a second this year and the second next year. And they're taking, I think what could be a surprise of the draft, they're taking quarterback Jackson Dart with the pick. I think that the whole Derek Carr situation is really interesting. I think I do think that they're definitely ones that could be in play for the Shedeur Sanders stakes. But yeah, I'm surprised. I don't think personally, from what I've read, what I've watched, that Jackson Dart is a first rounder, in my opinion. But maybe they feel like that's a punt they have to take and a risk that maybe they feel like they can't turn down the chance on. But Rory, for your last pick of the draft, unless you've got something cooking behind the scenes, with the Buffalo Bills at 30.
Yeah, so there's still a few, 3 or 4 names on there that I'm surprised are there. So there is, you're getting to the point where they could just throw a bit of a wrench in it and just go for the guy that they have the best on their board. But I think I can still make it work with a need for the Bills. So I'm going to go with Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. So the sack production was insane at Boston College last season. He's not the biggest, but he wins with speed and agility. And I think that matches up nicely. They've got Greg Rousseau on one side, and then obviously they brought in Joey Bosa, but we know the injury issues that Bosa has suffered. So I think getting an insurance policy for him, I don't think there's like Bosa's going to be looking at coming and having 1 or 2 years aimed at winning a Super Bowl. And I don't think there's longevity in him being there. So I think having the backup plan and somebody you can mix in, you can't have enough edge rushers. The Eagles showed that. So I think Ezrafi makes a lot of sense there.
Fair enough. Well, Sam, your last pick of the draft, we're number 31 and the Kansas City Chiefs. Who are they taking?
Well, I'm going to take Walter Nolan. Again, I'm surprised he's fallen this far. There's two guys that I think would fit the Chiefs, James Pearson and Walter Nolan, both still on the board. I think this, again, the Chiefs, it's basically either offensive line or defensive line. The value's not there on the offensive line, I think. So, especially even when the interior guys like Booker have gone as well. So I'm going for defense with the Chiefs. And again, Walter Nolan at 31, I thought it'd probably be a bit of a steal for them, especially with the way it fits their defense.
Fair enough. Well, the last pick of the first draft falls with me, and I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're taking 32nd overall, James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. Now, I think this was really where his position I felt was real need, because on defense, they only lost Brandon Graham to retirement. I mentioned before, Josh Sweat is someone that has gone via free agency. Milton Williams has gone as well. And I think, they've kept Zach Bourne, but I think they needed that guy to come in. And I think that there was ones like, I think other areas maybe you could argue were more lead, but I felt like with all the players I'd left, he was the best available. Now, I did really want to get a guy in that. As you mentioned before, a bit of my draft crush of the year, I really wanted to find a way to get Luther Burden in, but I just felt like it wasn't maybe their biggest area of need. But he's a guy that I love watching play. Unbelievable speed, ability to change direction, route running. Bit concerned by celebration involving a gun symbol, but apart from that, I think pretty excited player. And I think that whoever drafts him, I think, is going to have an exciting player on their hands. But that is the end of our mock draft. So first of all, thank you everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed the ride, and hope we've made as many correct picks as possible when it comes to draft night. But first of all, I want to say before we end, thank you to Rory and thank you to Sam for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Sorry, mate. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
No problem at all, guys. And thank you to Freddie via WhatsApp for your picks as well. And let us know, but we will put a graphic out on the show, on the social media of the show, as to what the final first round mock draft looks like. Do let us know in the comments how you feel we did, whether you think we made any bad picks, any wrong picks, who you would have changed, and just let us know as well where you're watching the draft on draft night and what your team is, who you want to see them take, and etc. etc. So in the meantime, we will end it here. This has been the Across the Pod NFL Podcast 2025 edition of our mock draft. I have been, as ever, your host, Andy David. With me today have been Sam Moores, Roy Joe Daniels, and also Freddie Harper Davis via WhatsApp. I will see you guys next time.